Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the live stream. I'm going to be breaking down my top stock picks for tomorrow, basically just telling you my entire trading plan for tomorrow. And then I'm going to go into taking some charting requests at the end of the session. Soli, Ruby, Nabil, Chanel, welcome in, off the rip, hello. Good evening. We just had futures open up, so let's see if there's any significant movement here. Not yet. Nothing crazy yet. Just as a full disclaimer, this is not financial advice. Anything that you hear me mention in this stream does not serve as financial advice, is not a signal to buy or sell. I'm just talking about my opinion, right? I'm just giving you my opinion on the stock market, basically laying out what I intend to do tomorrow with my trades, and hopefully you can gain some knowledge from the information that I put out. Trevor, welcome in. Mike, good to see you again. Weber, hello. Fly high. Keith, hello. Thanks for everybody saying hi. All right, let's jump right into it. The first one on my watch list for tomorrow will be LCID. These are in no particular order, by the way. I just kind of go through them as I see them, as I find them. If you've been in my Discord server, LCID making the watch list should not be a surprise to you. I mean, this is not a new setup that we just found. You know, we've kind of been watching it as it's been running up and then pulled back and has been consolidating this whole time. This is very clearly a range that's formed. You've got overall support right here around $36, and you've got resistance placed right at around $42. Initially, we had it on the watch list as a long idea for the breakout, and it rejected and came down. And then so we flipped the script, and we were looking to take it short below 36, which paid out for us on one day, but then that dip got bought right back up. So despite what this looks like, you know, you might say, Gates, well, how is that a range, and how is that support if the stock is breaking below? I'm just focusing on where these candles are closing, and the majority of this price action is occurring over 36 and under 42. But yeah, despite what this looks like, it is actually a bullish. This is actually a bullish sign and not necessarily a bearish one. This is telling us, you know, hey, the price dropped down, right? We were able to take a nice short on the day trade here, but the price got bought back up. The buyers were not scared by this dip and saw this as an opportunity rather than something to sell. So they bought the dip, brought it back up into the range, and now LCID is trading at the top side of the range. So where do we go from here, right? What are we looking for from this move? What I want to see, because we closed right at $42, what I want to see for confirmation is a break over 43 and hold. LCID is no stranger to making big moves. It can make a 10% move in one day very easily. So from where the stock is currently trading at now, the next point of resistance is going to be right here at $46. So a break of 43 and the run up towards 46 gives us about a 6.5% profit margin, which is plenty enough there to make some decent profits on for a day trade. So a couple of things that have to be met. Number one, LCID's got to break over 42. Number two, I want to see it up and over the $43 price point for extra confirmation. All right, so it did run up last week, at the end of last week, pulled back, kind of, you know, flatlined into the close basically. I don't want to see this open up super low. If it's opening up near 39 or opening up near 40, that kind of takes that trade out of commission for us. So the best case scenario is that it opens up right where it's closed at, you know, right where $42 is at, or at least over 41, and then our confirmation trade will be a break over 43. I'm not too worried about the 43. You see the 0.29 there. I'm not too worried about that 30-cent pop. That's just a wick, right? That's not really significant to me, that 30 cents there. So I'm just going to round it down. 43 is the trigger level that I'm looking for. So LCID for me will be a long idea over 43. That's going to give us a break of this range, this consolidating range that it's been in for about a month, and the move to the next point of resistance, which will be right at around 46. If you're just joining into the live stream, welcome in. I'm just giving you my opinion on the stock market and my trading plan for tomorrow, and I'll be taking charting requests at the closer towards the end of this stream. Number 2 on the watch list for tomorrow will be, without a doubt, Ford. So this is a good example of kind of what I'm expecting to see on LCID. Maybe not as crazy of a breakout, but this is a range, right? We talked about this one last week, and even the week prior. We talked about Ford trading within this consolidating range. And when a stock does something like this for an extended period of time, the breakouts tend to be larger. Now, granted, Ford had a news catalyst as it was breaking out of the top side of the range, which really worked in our favor for the run up. But this is what I would expect to see on LCID, this type of move on LCID, if we get that break of the range. You know, a pop move up and then the continuation run beyond that. So for Ford, since it's broken out and got the news catalyst gapped up a little bit here, it's had a lot of trouble breaking the $25 level of resistance. But this is starting to shape up what looks like to me an ascending triangle right there. All right, so this is your run up, your flat top level of resistance, higher lows being put in, and the inability to break 25. Very simple technical analysis here. Just looking for the break of 25. If we get it, there's a trade. If we don't get a break of 25, there's no trade. Right? I see a lot of people kind of comment on my stock picks, and they're like, "Oh yeah, well you nailed 2 out of 5, and the other 3 tanked. Did you take a loss on those?" And I'm like, well, no, I didn't even take a position on those because they didn't do what I expected them to do, right? So trading is about if-then statements. And I've mentioned this to my team multiple times. If you've watched me do YouTube videos or watched any of my YouTube videos previously, I do talk about if-then statements. So if Ford breaks 25, then I plan to take a position. If it does not, then I don't care what it does. I really don't. It can sit here and chop around for the next 2 months, and I still won't touch it. I'm not about that. As a momentum trader, as a bullish bias trader, I'm looking for the breakout move, and I don't mind staying patient until that move is about to happen. And that's exactly how we caught this initial move up here. And that's exactly how we will catch the next move up if it gives us that move. All right? So for Ford, very simple. Set alerts at 25, just looking for a break of 25. Number 3 on the watch list for tomorrow is Boeing. This one, so Boeing actually, I'm going to couple this with AAL. I'll talk about that one in a second, but they're very similar setups. Boeing has had some good news here recently. It's had some bad news. Most recently, good news though, with new orders coming in, and that's going to cause the price of the stock to run up. But it's been difficult to trade, in all honesty, because we've been getting these kind of gap up moves and then no follow through. So what I see here is Boeing had a double bottom, right? So bottom 1 here, bottom 2 there, where it broke the neckline here, and then it's now consolidating underneath that level of resistance here at that 200 EMA. You could also argue that this is a range as well, with resistance right at around 218 and loose support around 210. So we've got 4 days of kind of chopping around and indecision as far as direction goes. So what I'm looking for on Boeing is a break over 218. Maybe, let me see the 5-minute here. Yeah, I think a break of 218 will be good. Just looking for a break of 218 for the break of this consolidating movement. And that would also give us, on the daily chart time frame, a break over the 200 EMA. And the next resistance that I see on the daily is right at around 222. If I were to just run this trend line back in the past, you see we have support there, resistance here, some support there. It gets choppy, but some resistance there. So I'm looking for that, that 2% move from 218 up to about 222. Hopefully beyond that, hopefully we get a larger move than that. Boeing certainly has the capability to make a larger move, but it's got to break this consolidation here, this range. So Boeing set alerts at 218. I'm looking for the break over the 200 EMA and higher highs to be put in for the reclaim of that 200. The next one on the watch list for tomorrow will be JPM. So bank stocks have been pretty hot lately, given the recent news, and that is partially the reason why the gap up here occurred. I'm not too worried about the gap up though. What I'm looking at is the inability of the stock to make a continuation trade. So if you're looking at something like BAC, right, where it's already gapped up and made the continuation up, JPM has not done that. Or even like what's another one, USB, right, where it gapped up and then continued up. JPM has not done that yet. So I'm looking for this to make that kind of expected breakout move, continuation topside. You could argue that this looks like a bull pennant pattern as well if we just include the gap as part of the flagpole. So yep, there's your pennant pole, and then there's your pennant coming off, and I'm looking for the break over $168 for the move beyond that. JPM does tend to be a slower mover on some days, so just keep that in mind. You may not get a very huge move on JPM, and you might get it. I think it's really just going to depend on, is the money going to be flowing in the bank stocks or not. So a break over 168 is what I'm looking for. Price target of probably 170, 171 area based off of this resistance. And then if it gets there, we might start looking at a move towards 173 plus. All right, so quick recap. LCID making the watch list, looking for a break of this range here as it's validated the lower side as support and trading near the resistance at the top side. So we're looking for a long idea over 43 with a price target of 46 in mind. Boeing, we're also looking for a break of the range. Since it's trying to hold 210 as a support, we want to see the reclaim of that 200 EMA long idea over 218 with a price target of 222 or so in mind. JPM looking for a break of the pennant pattern shaped up here. We want to see a long idea, or it will be a long idea over 168 as of now, with a price target of 170 or 171 in mind. And then Ford, I'm not going to put a price target on this because I don't know how far this thing can run. Given this volume here, if we get that volume to come back into this name, I think we could see 27 pretty easily. But I typically will aim for about a 2% profit margin. So even if it gives us, a 50 cent or a $1 run, I'd be happy with that. So it'll be a long idea over 25, price target of 26 to 27 in mind. These levels that I'm talking about right now, they are subject to change in the morning given the market movements. If the market tanks overnight and we wake up to a gap down in the overall market, obviously these trigger levels are going to be needing some adjustment, right? And I'm leaving that, I have to leave that up to you all that is not in my Discord server to adjust your trigger levels accordingly. These are not levels that are set in stone. And in most cases, each morning, there is something that needs to be adjusted. So just keep that in mind as you're writing this stuff down. Use the trigger levels that I'm giving you as kind of guidance points for now, and then correct your plan in the morning given the pre-market moves, after you see the pre-market moves. I want to talk about two that I'm going to talk about three other stocks, I think, that will be on the side chart watch list. Number one is AAL. So I mentioned that this is, it looks very similar to Boeing, where it's reclaimed the 50 EMA and having trouble breaking that 200 EMA. right? So if we go to Boeing, reclaim the 50, having trouble breaking the 200. You've got 4 days of chopping around here. You got about 4 days, 4 to 5 days chopping around here. Why am I going to include both? Well, because I know that there are members within my Discord server and community that have different portfolio values and different capital requirements. So for somebody that doesn't want to trade a more expensive contract on Boeing, I think that AAL is a great alternative. So what I'll do is probably include Boeing as a main chart watch, and then I'll include AAL as a side chart watch. And they are moving similarly, but I don't feel that there's a need to trade both. If they both break out and run, and you only catch one, then that's fine, right? That's kind of the idea here. But for AAL, we're looking for a break over the most recent high very easily, right? The same thing that we're looking for Boeing, or looking at on Boeing. So we want to see the reclaim of that 200 EMA. $20 is a whole number. That's going to be your next logical point of resistance overhead. That's giving you right at about a 2% profit margin there. So it'll be a long idea over 19.5 to 19.6 for the run to 20. The next one I want to talk about is Walmart. Not one that normally makes my watch list, but it's been making some pretty wild moves here recently. Big drop down, big recovery move up. Big drop down, a big recovery move back up. And so what this is showing me is that this is a massive pennant pattern here that has yet to truly make a directional decision. You've got lower highs, you've got higher lows, and a bunch of chop here. A lot of chop, trying to hold that 200 EMA as a support. So I'm looking for a break of probably 145.5 or 146. I want to see some higher highs put in on this thing for the run back up towards 150. I know it's a big expectation for something like Walmart that doesn't typically make big moves, but I mean, look at the recent moves it's made, right? These are pretty large days here for this stock. It's typically a lower beta name. This is usually what you can expect to see from Walmart's price action. But we're getting some volatility here, so I'm hoping that on a breakout move, we get some conviction and follow through and some higher highs really put in. So price target of about 148 in mind if we get that break over 146. That'll be a side chart watch for us. The next one that I don't know if this is going to be on our watch list yet or not. It's really going to depend on the opening price. It's Alibaba, BABA. So BABA, most recently had these lows here at around 110, bounced once, bounced twice. We actually had one of the traders, Zach Hosky, in the server. He's a moderator in the server. Called this out as a swing trade, beautiful swing trade. I believe the contracts that he mentioned went well over 100% here on the run. And then the stock ran up and met resistance right here at the 50 EMA. Totally expected, right? When a stock is trading below the 200 EMA or below the 50 EMA, those are both dynamic levels of resistance that we can always expect to act as a point of resistance. Doesn't always have to happen, but that's kind of what these indicators are. They are dynamic levels of resistance. So we got the run up to 134, the hit, and then the pullback. But BABA is known for gap ups and gap downs. If this gaps up or trades over 134 or 135 in the morning, I will definitely be adding this to the watch list because there's a lot of room here on the daily chart time frame for Alibaba to make up. Look at the weekly chart, right? Even the weekly chart's saying there's a ton of room here that BABA has to make up to the top side. And if you even want to take it a step further, what does that look like to you, right? It looks like a bear pennant that broke out to the top side. So if we get that if we get that move over 135, 134, 135 this week, I think that it's very possible for Alibaba to run to 150. There's a gap right over 150 up to about 160 and some change that BABA has yet to fill. It hasn't even tested the bottom side of this gap as a resistance yet. So you see the profit margin that's available here. Looking for the move over 134, 135 for the run towards 150. Later, probably later this week if we don't get a gap up. All right, so just make sure you're keeping an eye on this. That will really depend on the opening moves for this stock. I'm going to alert a couple of more actually. I'm kind of hesitant about alerting these, but I just want to put them on radar. MU, this has been one that I've talked about quite a bit previously. We've got resistance here at $95, $96, $97, right? You can see there's a lot of tests here of 97, but there's just been an inability to break that level, that resistance point. So if MU breaks over that price point, I think that we can see $100 pretty quickly. But it needs a daily candle to close over 97 for that to be the case, because we've yet to have that during this whole consolidation phase. The other case is that, hey, you could argue that it's tried to break, it's unable to break, and this might be the start of the downtrend. This is a bearish engulfing candlestick right here at a known point of resistance, which could be signaling that this has the potential to come down from where it's currently at. But it's the market, right? And we could be surprised with things. So if 93 or 94 validates as a support on MU and this gets bought back up to 97, I will be adding this to the watch list later on in the week. If we get a close up at 97 or near 97 or even over 96, I'll be watching it like a hawk to put this on the watch list for the run to $100. The other one is Disney. Disney has been one that's pretty widely talked about in the community recently, but hasn't made like major moves. Double bottom pattern here on the daily chart time frame and is now at the 50, right? And so it's starting to fight here at the 50 EMA. Is it going to reject and come down, or is it going to break over and try to test the bottom side of this gap as a resistance? It almost looks like, you see I have it drawn here, it almost looks like a pennant pattern starting to shape up. So I've just set my alerts at 160, and I'll be keeping a close eye on Disney for the run over 160 up to 164. We'll reevaluate it once it gets to that point, but I mean, there is a pretty large gap over 164, 10-point gap from 164 to 174 for Disney to fill if it does, get into that area. It's got to get over, and it's got to get over that 200 EMA. So a lot of resistance points overhead. I'm going to put all of that on the back burner, just watching it over 160 for now. All right, so that's going to be it for the recap. LCID, Boeing, JPM, Ford, all making my main chart watch list. AAL, Walmart, Alibaba, all making my side chart watch list, and I'm going to keep a close eye on Disney and MU this week for those to break over 97 and 160 respectively. If you're just joining into the live stream and you missed the review on all of those stocks, this is recorded and will be available for you to review and start over once I end this stream. I'm going to move now into the Q&A portion of the live stream and start taking some charting requests. I just ask that if you're calling out some stocks in the chat channel, that you provide some sort of analysis or a sentence or two describing why that stock deserves some attention. All right, so let's go with ORCL. Somebody mentioned this one here. ORCL bouncing on the daily at the 200 EMAs, what you said, has a large gap above. I wouldn't consider that a large gap. So if you're talking about this gap right here, that gap has already been filled, right? So once a gap is filled, this is a large gap right there. Hold on, I'll draw it out so you can see. That is a large gap, right? Once that gap has been filled, which it was from here to here, it cannot be filled twice. So that gap has been filled. If you're talking about this gap, I wouldn't necessarily consider that a large gap. It's only 2%. It is a gap. It is a gap that can be traded, but we're well off from, this stock is well off from that price point. So ORCL, what's going on here? I would be curious to know what was the catalyst that caused this drop right here? It looks like some sort of negative news because it gapped up on earnings, right? That's very clear. And then was unable to hold 100 as a support, which is a whole number. And the inability to hold 100 as a support, it looks like there was some negative news that came out on this that caused it to gap down. It's just been in a downtrend pretty much ever since. We do know that the 200 EMA is a dynamic level of support, so this is potentially a bounce area. What I would be looking for on ORCL to confirm a bounce is higher highs to be put in. So either a break over 89 or a break over 90 for the move back up to the top side. Because the last thing that you want to be doing, especially if this was a negative news catalyst, the last thing that you want to be doing is buying into a downward trending stock without validation that it's bouncing yet, because that's called catching a falling knife. So one of the easiest ways to validate that the stock is actually reversing is to look for higher highs to be put in. Yes, that means you're going to miss out on a couple of dollars of profit margin, but you will have more confirmation that it's bouncing. I think that since this is just a wick right here and all of the bodies of these candles are closing below $89, I think a break over 89 would be sufficient enough to give you confirmation that the stock is actually reversing off that 200 EMA. You'd want to see a daily candle close over $89, and your price target would probably be somewhere near that 50 EMA. That's going to be your first point of resistance. If this is a known support at the 200 EMA, then the known resistance would be at the 50 EMA, logically, right? So just be careful, because that's a limited profit margin as well. You're cutting it close, that's only like a 2.9%, 3% profit margin, profit margin there. So it is a little limited. But if it holds up, I think that would be, it's all right for, if you're trying to day trade it, you'd be all right with that as a profit margin for a day trade. But yeah, definitely wait on those higher highs to be put in. Set alerts over 89. You don't want to see this below 86. You definitely don't want to see it below 85. All right, somebody mentioned C. So C also kind of falls into the bank stocks, right? So he said that C has a recent downtrend break on the weekly chart, huge bullish candle. Okay, 200 EMA on the daily overhead. Yeah. Look, I think that the move on C probably would have been the day after this happened, right? So like you would have been looking for the continuation run here, or the continuation run here, or here, or here. Now it's filled. It's actually not filled that gap quite yet. There is still a little bit of gap to be filled over to the left side. So there is a gap there from 66.5 or so up to 67.2. So it's not a huge gap. It is there. It's a 1% gap, but what you have to take into consideration is what you mentioned right there in your analysis, is the 200 EMA is there. That it's at a point of dynamic resistance. So and it got there pretty quickly. Earnings is upcoming as well. That might be something to just wait and see what's going to happen after earnings, and then trade it from there. If it breaks over 67, hey, it's reclaiming that 200 EMA. It's pushing up and filling the gap. Looks good to go. This is also I just drew a trend line here. It's also a point of support. We know that old support can become new resistance. A lot of different resistance points converging at that $67 price point. So yeah, I would just set alerts at 67 and kind of wait and see what goes on there. Keep in mind though, earnings is upcoming as well, right? That's on the 14th. All right, somebody mentioned Airbnb. Strong bullish candle on the daily. Thoughts on a potential continuation to the top side? I don't know. This is a lot of chop. I mean, it is a strong bullish candle. This is a bullish engulfing candlestick. So the body of this candle does totally engulf the body of this candle without regard to the wicks. But the thing is, there's so much resistance overhead that I can't definitely say that this is going to continue upwards. What I would do is draw a trend line like that, and I'd say, you know what? If this puts in higher highs, then it has my attention. But there's so many resistance points that it has to get through from where it's currently at before it even gets to this point. So here's your high, there's your lower high, there's your lower high. From where it's at, it's got resistance right there at 170. It's got resistance again right at the 50 EMA at around 172. Then above that, it's got resistance at this higher high at 175. So set an alert at 175 and just sit on it and wait. You know, maybe it does give us a break of the downtrend, and this could be the start of that with that bullish engulfing candlestick. But from where it's at right now, it's too hard to judge what your profit margin would be and where this thing stops on the way up. So the best thing to do is just wait until you have clear, definitive direction. A break of 175, I think, will give you that. Remember, if you're calling out anything, just make sure you're providing some sort of sentence or backstory to the stock that you're calling out, so that we're not just mentioning random tickers here. All right, somebody mentioned NVDA here. Looking like it's breaking strong support at 270 to the downside. Yes, I would agree. So the whole run up, NVIDIA has treated this 50 EMA as a support, starting with there. I mean, it's broken below a few times, but look, support, little bit of a breakthrough there, support, little bit of a breakthrough there, but now we're getting another breakthrough here, and this could be the start of a larger downtrend down to this 200 EMA. I mean, just as fast as the stock ran up, it can come down twice as fast. The adage goes, you take the stairs up and the elevator down. So not only is it breaking below the 200 EMA, but you've also got a static level of support. Boom, boom, boom. And even most recently there, that could be broken as well. So I like this as a short idea. Fly High mentioned this one. I do like this as a potential short idea underneath 270, especially if you have something like Q's going red or SPY going red tomorrow. Yeah, definitely. Good eye. And there's plenty of room for this to fall down to, I think your price target would probably be the top side of this gap, somewhere around maybe 250 or 240. I would say 250 initially, and then below that, 240. All right. The Avenger said Roblox looks like it might continue the gap fill down to 77 or so. Yes. The gap actually stops at around 79, but yeah, you're right. This was a big gap here on RBLX. It tried to hold as support, so the gap was partially filled here shortly after being created, then bounced up, bounced again, and eventually broke through. Not only did it break through the gap into the gap area, but it also broke down and is now trading underneath that 200 EMA. There is still gap to fill here, and profit margin wise, it's there. You're looking at 4% profit margin, so I absolutely agree with you. A short below 82 would probably bring this back down to 80 or 79 to continue the gap fill. It does. It looks weak here. Definitely does. CLF, somebody mentioned this one. He said it looks good over 24. It's a bull flag breakout on the weekly chart time frame. Let's see. Okay, we might be looking at different things. I'm not sure what you consider. You might be considering this as a bull flag, which I don't think that is, because if it's a bull flag, the flag part should not retrace the entirety of the pole, right? So if you're talking about this whole move being the bull flag on the weekly, then I don't think it's broken out yet. Right? I think I see what you're trying to shape up there. But remember, for a bull flag to break out, it has to do what? Put in higher highs. We don't have that yet on CLF, at least not on the weekly chart. On the daily chart, though, I do agree. It's in an uptrend. This is some nice volume there, so I'm not sure. Maybe there was some news here. I would keep an eye on this gap, because that is a gap, right? I would keep an eye on that gap area. It's not super major, but it is there from 22.75 to 23. I would keep an eye on that, because you definitely want this stock to hold up that gap area as support if it's going to continue up. We'll flip this to the 5-minute time frame. You said a break of 24. I think that you could probably get away with an earlier entry than waiting on it to get to 24, because this is a downtrend, downtrend trend line, right? And so you might be able to get away with a break of like 23.8 or 23.9, especially if it's validating the gap area as support. You could get an earlier entry to capitalize on more profits, and you might be thinking, oh yeah, well that's only 10 cents more, 20 cents more. But this stock is cheap. That makes a difference. That's almost a 1% move if you're looking at getting in 20 cents earlier. So I would see what the price action looks like tomorrow. If it does hold 23 as support and maybe gets over 23.6, I definitely start keeping an eye on it. 23.8, absolutely. 24, that would be your confirmation level. So you're right on with your analysis. I don't think you need to necessarily wait on it to get to 24 to take an entry. But if you do prefer to have more confirmation, then by all means, go for it. Yeah, good one. I like that. I like that mention too. Strong uptrend here as well, leading up to this, whatever this was. Looks like some sort of news catalyst with that volume. You said SE is on a downtrend, short below 178. Yeah, I mean, if you're looking at, let's see here. So if you're looking at something as a continuation trade, it should, I mean, it's usually pretty easy analysis. Let's pretend we're bullish on it, right? So let's pretend we're bullish on SE and we're like, okay, where are we going to take this long at? Well, if it makes a new high, that would be the area where we would want to be, taking the stock long. So during this consolidation phase, like when we get that breakout here, that's our confirmation. Hey, let's go ahead and take the stock long because it's continuing to make higher highs. So your analysis here saying to short below the most recent lows because it's now in a downtrend. Yeah, you're right. Short below 178 would work. I think maybe even a short below 180 would probably be sufficient. So long as it holds underneath 200, you don't want to see that. You don't want to see that break over 200. That's your whole number, right? And it does look like there is a negative catalyst here that caused the stock to gap down with some volume in the first place. So this could be a case of, hey, the stock gapped down, continued down, retested 200 as a resistance because it was old support, became new resistance. Now it's going to continue down from here. So set alerts, probably 180 would work. You don't have to always be so exact. 177, you said 178. 178, it was only hit one time there. I guess that would be extra confirmation for you, but I don't know that $2 is going to make a huge difference. So all right, somebody mentioned UAL. Look, we talked about AAL, right? And we talked about Boeing. So UAL and even DAL all kind of fall into the same category, same sector as AAL. They're very, very similar. So the analysis is the exact same on all of those, in my opinion. Just trade the sector leader. You don't have to always trade everything in that whole sector, right? Look, you got the run up, pull back, run up. Look at DAL. Run up, pull back, run up. Look at UAL. Run up, pull back, run up, right? It's going to be the same. Looking for the recent highs on those. Somebody mentioned PTON as a continuation trade to the top side. I know what you're mentioning here. So stocks like there were some like growth names that got some they got some movement at the end of last week. So if you're looking at like DKNG, these stocks that were like heavily brought down, got some movement at the closer towards the end of the day. Look at like SPCE, heavily brought down, got some movement, 5.6% move. DKNG, heavily brought down, got some movement. PTON, heavily brought down, got some movement. So could PTON continue up from where it's at? Yes, it could. If you're looking for a continuation bounce on this, by all means, go for it. The reason I'm not adding PTON or DKNG or SPCE on my watch list is because I don't have true confirmation that these are going to do anything off this bounce. I mean, this actually happens pretty frequently, you know. Run down, run down, run down, big move up, and then does nothing. Run down, run down, run down, big move up, and does nothing. Big move up, does nothing. Big move up, does... So who's to say that this just isn't another dead cat bounce? Mini dead cat bounce. Is it the true reversal? I'm not convinced yet. I will be convinced when it starts to put in higher highs. But until then, I'm not. These are all lower lows all the way down. So I'm waiting for the break of 40 on PTON, and that is why my alert is set right there. It'll have my interest when it gets over 40. And then same, you know, if you want to go into like DKNG, right? Same deal. That's why I've got this big drawn downward trend line here. It won't have my interest until it gets over $30. That's why my alert's set there. SPCE, same deal, right? Big downward trend line. I don't even have an alert set on this. I'll set one at 16 though. I'd like to see it over that 50 EMA before I take a position. Somebody said Facebook has a possible break of the downtrend. Facebook's actually not in a downtrend, right? Well, most recently it is in a downtrend, but collectively, you know, on a grander scheme or a grander scale, it's not. Facebook's not in a downtrend. It's just moving sideways. Big support right at around 310 area. Big resistance right at around 350. That's our sideways movement on Facebook. Could it be breaking the downtrend here? I thought that with this move on Thursday that it would be, and I was keeping an eye on Facebook because it made this run up. I saw this dip happen, and I didn't buy this dip. I just watched it, and I watched it run and run and run. And by the time it got, I was like looking for the pullback. Never gave us the pullback, and by the time that it started to pull back, I was like, yeah, well, it's overdone at this point, right? I'm not going to chase that all the way up, but I was looking for a continuation on Facebook over 339, and that's exactly why my alert is already set right there. So could it be breaking the downtrend most recently? Yes, it could. But I don't think that this deserves to be on my watch list until it gets up to 339. Cool? All right. Well, thank you so much for all of the questions and the analysis. I'm going to actually call it an afternoon here. Quick review: LCID, Boeing, JPM, Ford, AAL, Walmart, Alibaba, all potentially making my watch list tomorrow. MU and Disney will be two stocks that I keep an eye on later this week. If I did not get to your charting request, I do apologize. There's only a limited amount of time that I have here, but you can always send me a DM either on Discord or Instagram, and I'll be happy to answer whatever it is that you're asking about. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Press that like button for me. Thank you for your time this afternoon. I hope you make some money this week, and I'll see you all in chat. Take care.